All right. Next, we're going to look at functions, and we're going to look at what's called function notation. And it's just a different way of expressing an algebra problem. So if you look at the, I call this the old-fashioned way, right? Where you get y equals 5x plus 2. And remember what we talked about, inputs and outputs. So x is the input, y is the output. So another way of expressing that is what we call function notation. So instead of using the variable y, we use what's called f of x. That's how you will read it, f of x. And we are finding an output as a function in the case. The function may not always be f, though. We can use different letters. So if we were talking about height as a function of time, you could use h and t. And let me just show you how we're going to use function notation, okay? So again, let's look at what we call the old-fashioned way and the new way, okay? So we have a few different functions. We have f of x, g of x, and h of x, okay? Again, all different types of functions. And if you look here, for the first one it says f of 7. So we're going to write it as f of 7. And all that means is that when you see an x value, you are going to put a 7 in its place. Okay? So this would just be f of 7, if we evaluated that, would be what? Negative 14 plus 6, right? So negative 14 plus 6 is going to give me my function, and that would be a negative 8. So f of 7 equals negative 8. G of 20 would mean that we're going to put 20 into that function. And let's find out what it is. So we're going to do G of 20 means we're going to do 0.5 times 20 minus 8. Okay. So 0.5 times 20 minus 8 is going to give me 2. So G of 20 equals 2. H of negative 3 means I'm going to take the x value, replace it with negative 3, right? So every time that I see an x, I am going to plug in negative 3. So it's going to be 2 times negative 3 squared. You'll notice I put that in parentheses. That's important. And you could just do this in your calculator, or maybe your head. 3 times negative 3 plus 5. All right? So let's evaluate that. So that's 2 times negative 3 squared minus 3 times negative 3 plus 5 will give me 32. So H of negative 3 equals 32. And then if you look at the last one, G, so again, I'm going to go back to my G function, which is the second one, and I am going to plug in 100 this time. Okay, so let's see what that would be. That would be 0.5 times 100 minus 8. Okay, 0.5 is just basically, isn't that half of 100, right? Minus 8, I think I said plus, minus 8. So that would give me G of 100 equals 42. My board's going a little crazy there. All right. Now let's go back and let me just erase some of this stuff for us here. Okay. So we could go back to the functions. So we have our three functions here. Now if you'll notice here it says f of x. If you go back to f of x, that's really y, isn't it? If I call it the old-fashioned way. So what we're doing in here is we're going to plug 30 in for f of x. So that's going to be 30 equals negative 2x plus 6. So then we're just solving that algebra problem, right? So we're going to what? Minus 6 from the problem. Okay. Which is going to be what? 24 equals negative 2x. So divided by negative 2 is going to equal x. Is going to equal negative 12, right? Okay. All right. And then for g of x, again, I am going to plug 9 into here, right? And I am going to solve the problem. All right, so I'm going to add a to both sides, right? So that's 0.5x equals 17. So 17 divided by 0.5 is going to equal, it looks like 34. So x equals 34. Okay. All right. Now, the next one, f of x. So I'm going to go back to this equation again, right? I'm going to plug in 15 this time. So 15 is going to equal negative 2x plus 6. So I'll solve that algebra problem, minus 6. So the algebra problem should really, guys, be the easy part of this. It's just learning kind of what I call the new language. So what is that, 9, I guess, right? So it looks like we're going to have a fraction. So we could probably just leave it. If you're like me, I just leave it as a fraction. So x is going to equal negative 9 over 2, right, for that one. And then the last one, g of x, is 0, so I will plug a 0 in for g of x. So 0 equals 0.5x minus 8. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. Okay. So I'm going to get 0.5. That's a beautiful 5, isn't it? 0.5x equals 8. And I'm going to divide by 0.5. All right, so 8 divided by 0.5 is going to give me 16. Okay. So x equals 16. So again, it's just another way of solving problems. Now let's look at another option with function notation. which is a table of values, right? Or a graph, okay? So, table of values, excuse me, this would be basically my x or my y. Here it looks like we're using t for time, right? So I want to know when the time is 5, what would be the temperature? So when t is 5, the temperature is 8, right? And then when the time is 11 minutes, then the temperature is 30. Okay, so it looks like it's going up there. All right. All right. Now again, remember this is y, so we're going backwards. So now for this one, we're going to look for 22 T of M. So when the temperature is 22, the time is 9 minutes. And then on this one D, when the temperature is 4.6, the time equals 2, right? Okay. Pretty easy math. It's just getting used to learning how to read it. All right. Now, the last example I have here for you guys is a graph. All right. So again, remember that this is the x value for the first two problems. There's my x, there's my y. So when x is 2, look on the graph, what is y? So it looks like that would be my first one, right? So when when it's 2, it's going to equal, what is that? -2, right? And then let's look at the next one. When it's -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, what's my y value? So when it's -4, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? +4. Now, when g of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, if you look at that, you have an open circle, don't you? So that means that when g of 4, all right, so when you look at g of 4, we notice there's an open circle, so that means that cannot be an answer. So, however, if you go down to here, that's a closed circle, right? So that's our output value. So that looks like that would be what? -2. All right. Now the last one, g of x is 1. So basically we're talking about y now, right? So when y is 1, you'll notice we have this here. So we're trying to find the x value. So here would be x would be -1. However, if you want to follow this over here, right, x can also be what? And besides -1, x looks like it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So basically on this one, you have two values that it could be. Okay? So that is our lesson on how to use function notation.